remember getting into the car when they picked me up and I was just grabbing chunks of my hair out. And that was the first time I'd ever seen my dad cry.
Jay, you are a professional dancer. You're gay. You grew up with Māori heritage in Geelong. What was it like growing up as a little gay boy in Geelong?
It was hard. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, there were definitely moments where it was difficult, you know, finding myself, small town minds. But I wouldn't be who I am without what I went through. You know what I mean? Like, the difficult situations, and then even going into adulthood, moving to Melbourne, like that's where I found myself, I feel. And then I moved back to Geelong and I saw it a complete different lens because I was like, I know who the fuck I am. I know what I went through and it made me stronger. As cliche as that sounds, I don't know. Yeah.
This might sound like an insensitive question, but I've always been so curious. When you were born, did you know you were gay?
I knew as soon as I was able to walk. I remember, like, I see photos of me wearing my mum's, like, high heel boots and, like, strutting up and down the house and making up dance routines and, like, Mum and Dad, like, watch me, you know? And Dad came from, like, a sporty rugby background. He did not know what was going on. But...
So you never had to come out?
No. Well, I remember when I was like 12, I wrote a letter and I sent it to Mum and went to school. And then as soon as I got home, I was crying. And Mum's like, Jay, I knew. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't give a shit. Like, that's fine. Like, I love it. So I was super lucky to, like, grow up in a household that was supportive. It was outside of the household where it was difficult, especially in school, obviously. Yeah.
Can you speak more on that?
Yeah. I don't know, just people giving you shit and sort of telling you what you are without you being ready to let the world know. But at the same time, I don't think you should have to come out. Like, you should just be you. Heterosexual people don't have to come out. Like, why do I, you know? And it's like such a small part of who I am. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Does it still make you a little bit emotional to talk about?
It does, because I feel like life would have been and would be a lot easier if I was just sort of like most people. I feel like I would have a partner by now. I really want to be a dad. I reckon I'd have kids. So I always think about that. But then I wouldn't be who I am without what I went through. You know, everything happens for a reason. So, yeah.
Well, it wasn't long after that letter when you were abused or you were sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Where did that take place?
So I remember I was dancing at the local town dance studio. And I remember one night walking home. It was like a 20-minute walk, and Mum and Dad would always pick me up most of the time, and then this one time they didn't. And I haven't really said this out loud, but it's fine. And yeah, I was halfway home and these two guys pulled over, and I was 12, you know, like I was tall for my age, but I was 12, two grown men. Yeah, and I held on to that for 6 years, I think, before I sort of told Mum and Dad. They knew something was up, and, you know, I'd sneak out, I was drinking, all of that sort of thing. And I think now I'm grown, I know why I sort of did that, because Mum went through something similar. So I remember thinking, I don't want to tell her because she'll feel some guilt or something. And then it got to a point where I was maybe 18 and I just told her, and I felt so much better. But then I also felt laying that out to her, like I feel bad that she knows that, but then she would want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel like your world sort of changed from that exact point?
I felt like I just couldn't catch a break. Going from, growing up knowing I was different, being gay, wanting to dance, bullying, and then that happened. And I remember thinking, like, maybe this is like how life goes and people just keep it in. And like, my story is nothing unique.
So was it after that incident that you started taking drugs and drinking, or when was that?
I think drinking, because it made me feel confident, like a lot of people say. It was drinking, smoking, marijuana. And then I moved to Melbourne to study dance professionally. And I was hard into the party scene and everything that comes with that. And that's when I knew I needed to move back to Geelong because it was just getting chaotic with the substance use. And like a lot of people, I fitted in first time in my entire life. And
in Melbourne or with substances?
In Melbourne with substances, yeah. And it was just, I was the party boy. I would have parties at my apartment. I loved it, Everyone loved me. And I was the boy that was always down. And then I realised people could stop using the party substance. And then I couldn't. I actually could not. And then COVID hit. So I moved back with mum and dad. And that was where I was drinking. I was doing drugs.
What sort of drugs?
MD, ketamine, cannabis, cocaine, and then I moved to heavier stuff, so heroin and ice, and I was doing it in secret in my room. I look back at that now and I'm like, crazy, like injecting drugs in my parents' house because my mental health had declined so hard. And, the past trauma and everything, it was all adding up. And I was like, oh, okay, this is another thing that I'm battling, like another event, COVID. And there was time for me to get in my head and it was just not stopping. So I loved the Melbourne scene and I finally fitted in, but it caught up on me. And I just couldn't stop. I don't know how people do. I honestly don't know how people have like a drink or two or have like a night out on the scene and then like that's it for a month. I just wanted more and more and more. And it's still a battle today. Like I'm in Burleigh Heads and I'm seeing people drinking and I'm like, oh, I really want to go out and get on it. But then I'm like, no, I've got to be here this morning. Like I've got to remember why I'm here and I wouldn't be here if I didn't stop, It's just little reminders for myself because people say it gets easier with time. For me, not really. Like I still struggle every single day and like medications helped me. The right supports have helped me. But I always want to use and drink. Yeah.
Does that come from a place of, I'm in Burleigh Heads, we've talked about how disgustingly good looking every single person seems to be up here.
Crazy.
Is it from a place of, I don't feel worthy, I really want to fit in, and that equals taking stuff?
Yeah. And just enjoying how I'm feeling and being like, walking around like super confident and loving life. And everyone says to me, oh, you're so confident, da, da, da. I'm good at putting on that mask because I've done it my whole life with my sexuality, with like acting like nothing happened after I was sexually assaulted.
I'm interested to know that point where you touched on, where you said it felt like everyone could use substances and they could just get on with their day. It didn't consume them.
I ended up going in and out of hospital, I think 3 times, one of the times mum and dad had to call an ambulance, and I think that night I was using heroin from memory, and I couldn't tell them that. So I sort of said, I just don't feel well, I need you to call an ambulance. I couldn't breathe. I remember like struggling to get my words out. And at that time, mum and dad didn't really understand what I was going through. Over time, they do now, but it was sort of waking up in hospital, mum and dad being there. The second time, actually, I remember being so upset. I don't know what headspace I was in, and I wrote like a letter, and I left it in the garage. It was, suicide letter. And then I sort of walked down the road and I went to hang myself, and mum and dad found me in time. I remember getting into the car when they picked me up, and I was just grabbing chunks of my hair out. And I remember looking down at my hands and like just hair. And that was the first time I'd ever seen my dad cry. And then I went to hospital, and then I remember at that moment I was like, fuck, this is so bad. Next morning it was a blur, and I was like, I would never do something like that. So it just goes to show that it can catch up on you, and like you're in your body but you're not.
Oh, Jay.
Yeah.
Have you and your father spoken about that moment since?
Not really. He came from, New Zealand rugby, masculine male. We talk about, like our thoughts and feelings now to an extent, but I don't think we've really touched on that, which I'm kind of not mad about. I kind of want to like...
Everything at its own time sort of thing.
Yeah.
You were also sexually assaulted again in your early 20s. And you wrote to me and you said that one really stayed with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being in the dance scene, I had a dance teacher, mentor who I was, friends with, I thought. And one night we went out. I'd graduated from full-time dance at that time. One night we went out and I was off it, super under the influence. And I remember he was like, come back to my house, you can stay at my house. And I did. And then I remember I felt like I'd been drugged, but then at the same time I was like, maybe I'd just, taken too much of this and that. And then I sort of woke up at like maybe 3 or something, like an hour like that. And he was on top of me, and I knew what was going on, but it was like I couldn't move. So that's why I felt like I'd been drugged. And he was like this person in the industry that was put on like this pedestal. And I did tell people, and I, had those conversations. And there were a lot of social climbers, and people didn't really have my back because of who he was. And I still have like this anger inside of me towards these people that I'm working on with my counsellor and my psych to try and move past. But it was like, I thought these guys were my friends, and they clearly weren't, until he was sort of caught out later in life. And then, I got all these messages flooding in being like, we're here for you. That made me even more mad. Yeah. And I think that's why it stuck with me the most, because people knew about it. Whereas with the first incident when I was younger, it was just me going through it. So, yeah.
It's also who he was, and I only say this because I see myself in that story, who you were at the time too. Like I've said to my friends, I was drug raped. Is that the word for it?
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
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 Someone's listening
like
probably
that.
like, oh God, that's not the right words. But I felt almost guilty telling them because I used so many substances and so much. You do know what I mean? Like
100%.
it almost felt like I wasn't a credible source, and it lessens our experience when we think like that.
Yeah, I was the exact same. That's how I thought. People knew I was using and stuff, so they were like, "Oh, he's making something up. He did it," and I'm like, "Okay." It's a hard one to talk about.
Yeah. Do you feel nervous?
Well, it's not something I've really shared. I'm comfortable sharing it in this space, but it's not something I've really shared. But like, why wouldn't I? If this helps one person relate, you know?
Amen.
Why wouldn't I?
So you were in and out of hospital. When was the time where it actually stuck, or when did you enter rehab?
Sort of after that, I remember having a conversation with mum and dad, being like, I need help. I saw my younger siblings struggling, seeing me how I was, and they were young, early teens at the time. I was supposed to be this role model, I thought, and I wasn't. I honestly wasn't. And I just knew this isn't just about me. This is about my family, and I don't want to fuck their heads up anymore. So went to my GP, booked in, and then there was a wait list of like 3 months. That's when I really locked in, and I was using at work. There were like these little things I would do, like I would fill my drink bottle up with red wine and I would drink on the job. But I remember having like raspberry lemonade. I'm kind of going off topic, but I'd have raspberry lemonade and I'd be drinking that so that if people saw my tongue was so red, oh yeah, I'm drinking raspberry lemonade. There was a bin in the bathroom and I remember I would have a little baggie that I would like tuck underneath it so that whenever I went to the bathroom, there wasn't an issue and I could just grab it, have a little bump, go out, be the fun person. And that was while I was waiting for a bed. And then when I went into rehab, I've never felt that anxiety before. I remember being put into a unit with 3 Middle Eastern men that had been in prison, and I was freaking out because I came from this family that hadn't experienced anything like that. And maybe I was a little bit standoffish and cold because I didn't know what that was like, but my eyes were really open to we were so equal. We'd gone through the same thing and they became some of my best buddies and I still am in contact with them now. Rehab was the best thing I've ever done. I was there for 7 months. Seems like forever, but my life, I'm going to live so much longer now, you know? So it's like, it's such a small period of time. So hard, but so good. Yeah.
For someone who's listening who has been pulling their hair out, they're standing on the edge, what is the scariest time about rehab? Is it before you check in? Is it the first day?
It was before I checked in, driving there, and then it was also the week before I left because I was like, I've been in this bubble in a safe space. Now's when the real work is going to happen. And I just didn't know what to expect. I tried to set myself up as best as I could the last month of being in rehab so that when I stepped out, I wasn't so overwhelmed. So that's another thing I would suggest anyone that's going into a facility like that, really lining up the outside, figuring out what works for you, triggers, always having an escape plan as well is really important. To this day, whether it's, oh, I've got to pick up my sister, oh, I've got work early. It's like I'm lying, but it's a white lie to like protect myself and my sobriety, which is the most important thing to me to this day. Yeah.
And how important is routine to you?
Not overly important.
I only ask that because it seems everyone in rehab is like, I needed routine, I needed structure. So I'm asking now, as you're out, after 7 months in there.
I just needed to know what was going to work for me and I needed to know how to stay clean and sober. I think the routine of always having work is important and always having family time is important. So I guess that's somewhat of a structure. And learning to sit in my own space, having that structure of that alone time is super important to me. Like, I don't want to be bothered when I'm in my head, you know, like I want to be doing me. And coming up here, I was like, I don't want anyone with me. This is for me. And I was never like that. I always wanted to be around people because I couldn't be by myself. Yeah.
You're very open about your mental health struggles and how you still have demons and trauma that come up to this day. How, as a sober person, do you face that?
Calling the supports that are there. My mum, she's just the biggest angel on earth. I could cry. She's been my number one support from day one. And to this day, like coming here, I was like, I'm going to call my mum. And just hearing her voice just gets me through. And also knowing that I'm going to work and I'm supporting people that are at the facility I was once at. I've got to like lock in and be sober and be strong for them. That's how I get through it.
Yeah. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So I work at an alcohol and drug detox, and it was the detox I went to before rehab, and I've studied and everything since then. And I remember I saw a job come up and I applied and I got the job, and it's been the best job I've ever had because there's so much purpose there. And the team, my colleagues, are just like all beautiful and are aware that I was once there. And there's always that support. Like I can go to my boss, I can go to my colleagues and chat to them about, you know, if I'm struggling, and they're there. Full circle moment. It's crazy that I'm working where I once was.
It would be so amazing for your patients or for people who come in for not only having lived experience, but you were literally once in their shoes.
Yeah. And I like to make it known. Like maybe some of my colleagues are like, you don't need to share everything. I don't, but I also do because they appreciate it more, and the relationship just works so much better if they're struggling, I can be like, I was there. Like, I get what you're going through. I was literally in this room. I think it's really important how I practice to be really honest and upfront with the clients that come through. Yeah.
How many years sober are you now?
I'm 3.5.
Okay, so just
sober.
like me.
Yeah.
So I would love to discuss with you the different sort of phases in sobriety there are. So for me personally, that first year it was like, don't drink, don't drink, don't drink. And it became my whole personality because it had to. That's all I had to think about. The second year was like, okay, what am I here to do? Who am I? I went really deep into spirituality and my multi-heritage, discovering who I am. This third year is about how I can give to others. I wonder what your journey has looked like through the years of sobriety.
Kind of similar. First year was like finding my feet, not putting myself in situations where I'm at risk, and reconnecting with people that I maybe neglected or put in the back seat when I was going through it, and finding who were actually my friends and weren't just friends with me because I was fun or whatever. Second year was studying to work in the field. And then third year is, projects, giving back, and doing things that make me feel good. Yeah.
And friendships once you go sober, because you lose all of your friends. And even as I say that, people assume we're just like sitting in a corner in the darkness, rocking back and forth. But you lose friendships because there's nothing that ties you together anymore. Obviously, you were known as this Melbourne gay party boy.
Yeah.
What do your friendships look like now?
It's really opened my eyes who is there for me. So I've got a small handful of friends, and I know like they're my friends, you know. Flying up yesterday, I had to leave Geelong at 2:30, and one of my close friends, Alyssa, she was like, I'm picking you up, I'm dropping you off. I'll pick you up when you fly back into Melbourne. And I was like, how did I get this lucky? You know? And I'm so content with who's there for me, because it's like a two-way street. We're there for each other. And yeah, and my family, just, I'm so lucky. Yeah.
I find that is my main way of repairing my friendships, is just being reliable now. Because I think, I've never said this, but I've been thinking about it a lot. Sure, at the start of my life, I was probably a victim of child sexual abuse, a victim. And I think in order to protect myself, I became the villain. I became quite aggressive, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
I wasn't a really good friend. I was so flaky. Holy hell.
Yeah.
I was the worst. And I think now, to repair my friendships, all I can do is do what I say what I do, and be reliable.
Yeah. I find that as well with my younger siblings, my sisters. I was never able to like give them a lift to, you know, soccer or dancing. I was always pissed or high. And now I'm like, call me whenever, whatever time. I'm trying to like make up for it, and I'm trying to do my best. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to make up for that lost time with them and be that role model. And I'm also happy that I went through what I went through, because my sisters saw that person and they're like, I don't want to drink like that. I don't want to do drugs. I've seen what it's done to my older brother. So that's a positive. I'm like, I'm happy I actually went through that so that they don't. Yeah, that's how I feel.
You said you've always felt like an outcast and that substances made you feel like you fit in. How do you feel now about yourself through sobriety?
To be honest, I don't give a shit if people don't like me now. I know who I am. I know I'm strong, and I've gone through so much. And, you know, being here and starting my own podcast and just things like that, I'm like, I'm turning all of that to like a positive ending kind of thing. And I love who I am, and for the first time like ever. And yeah, here we are.
You want to plug the podcast? What's it called?
Sober State, Instagram Sober State _ Yeah, I'm just starting, so I'm so nervous, but it's just for me. It's fun. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else but you. And if you do what lights you up, it's really hard for people not to be drawn in by that.
Yeah.
This will be my final question.
Yeah.
What personality trait have you learnt about yourself through sobriety that you love?
About myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm confident, and I'm a fighter.